Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what part of the world you are joining us from today. My name is Cherise Dalton, and I work with Actify, and I'd like to welcome and thank all of you for joining today's webinar on automotive supplier challenges. As a reminder, all attendees are muted and in listen-only mode for the duration of the webinar. Should you have any questions during the Q&A portion of the presentation, please submit them through the questions panel of the webinar dashboard. Today, we have my colleagues Todd Underhill and Jim Vasello presenting for you. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Todd.
Thank you, Cherise, for the introductions. Again, my name is Todd Underhill. I'm a Senior Account Manager for Actify. I'll be going through a short presentation, and then I'll pass this over to Jim Vasello, which he will give you a product demonstration. And then after the product demonstration, we'll hopefully have a little bit of time there for Q&A and go from there. In our previous webinar with supply chain and manufacturing expert Jim Shepard, again, I'm not sure if any of you were able to attend that webinar, but Jim discussed how technology could help mitigate supply chain risk post-COVID-19. Today, we'll focus on the automotive industry and how COVID highlighted those challenges. A lot of the challenges that we faced post-COVID existed long before COVID came along. It just happened that COVID highlighted those challenges, like communication, collaboration, data sharing. Companies in the supply chain at various tiers are not adequately being able to communicate effectively with one another. Suppliers are looking for a competitive differentiator. If I can have better information that I can share in a better, faster way, that is one of those things that can distinguish you as a supplier. We are covering some key challenges in the automotive industry. We do realize that there are many. Most of the challenges that you see today are because products are becoming more complex, more capable, and have become a lot more challenging to produce. You have autonomous vehicles, you have electric vehicles. You have more smart parts being created, and you're seeing more SKUs than ever before. Plus, today, there's over 1 million lines of software code in every vehicle. Over the past 20 years or so, vehicles have been changing in technology and also in volume. As you'll see in the next few bullet points, the number of RFQs have changed over the past 15 years or so. And with the increased number of RFQs, as a supplier, you're forced to run shorter program cycles, lower volumes, and you're experiencing shrinking profit margins. OEMs are seeking competitive quotes and getting deadlines of 2 weeks or less. And actually, I've seen deadlines of 2 or 3 days, so times are changing out there. So now there's even greater pressure because the tier 1 suppliers are up against the clock. So let's talk about tier 1 suppliers in the automotive industry. It's basically a world of programs. They start a file based on these programs. They run their business based on these programs. So as an OEM, if it's an RFQ, it's for a program. And in that program, they may have one set of components that they work on, or they may break those components into parts or individual jobs. The same way they do again within their folder structure. So a job can be a production of parts or sub-assemblies. It can be engineered to order. It can be made to order. They can be tracking via gate basis, or they can be outsourcing the parts to job suppliers, tier 2 suppliers, or buying commodity items like bolts, for example. So now we consider all the individual programs and how they must break up into individual parts. Consider this. An average vehicle has over 30,000 parts. That's a large amount of parts that have been broken up and segmented out from the OEM down to the tier 1 suppliers. In addition to that, the tier 1 suppliers must produce or outsource the tool and dies that make up each of these parts. A die, for an example, consists of hundreds, if not thousands, of parts within itself. So the challenge is the ability to manage these programs, have a 360-degree view of all the information that includes content and other applications like your ERP system, your PLM system, and files used in all the different sources. Associate those files, version history, keeping all the product data related and in sync. One of the obstacles is multi-location. Where does the data reside? Is it in the US? Is it in Europe? Is it in the plant right down the street? The ability to generate an accurate quote with confidence becomes a real challenge because of problems that companies are facing with the short turnaround time. Suppliers are running against the clock. Most of these companies lack file management control. They use network folders to store their files, and it blocks the data relationship between those files and other content. There's no means of managing multiple part numbers. You have no automated control over file sharing. Departmental task is normally manual and tracked by static spreadsheets. Suppliers have incomplete information impacting their ability to win the RFQ. The challenges that tier 1 suppliers have go on and on. And as a tier 1 supplier, you're encountering these challenges each and every day. It starts with program management and solving these business challenges. How a tier 1 supplier can respond better to the original challenges that we just described. First off, it's the same thing that Actify has been talking about for years, liberating the product information so that you can quote with confidence and on time. Automating the program, job, and gate control systems are typically done in spreadsheets or it's a manual process. Use technology that can adapt by the masses to enable collaboration versus some alternative solutions that are so large, complex, and expensive that limits access to the technology. Ability to release, track, and report on file distribution so only the correct versions are used. Also having a visual 3D information that you avoid product disconnect that part numbers can generate. So what is Actify's role? We feel that there is an area called automotive program management that needs to be addressed. We have the technology. We've been doing this for some time now without truly giving it a name. We built our solution around 360-degree part data to execute error-free, profitable OEM supply programs. It's purpose-built for critical program management functions. And when we say program management, we realize running the RFQ, running a program touches everybody within the organization. The accuracy of fragment information from all these different data silos needs to be brought together and kept up to date. So you have a single source view of the data and information. The speed of connecting people and processes to data every time with efficiency so you can hit those short turnaround times of 2 weeks or less. And with Actify, and it's achievable with the technology like Actify that allows you not to have extensive training or large investment. So low complexity, low cost per user. Now everyone in your organization can gain access to that information. So with that said, I will pass this over to Jim Vasello for a product overview. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Hello, everybody. This is Jim Vasello from Actify, Senior Applications Engineer here. And To continue what Todd has been talking about, Actify has developed multiple tools over the years to help with the challenges that Todd was just explaining. I'd like to go through a couple examples that will show some of the business tools that we've created in a part catalog for the 3D side of which Todd had just mentioned, that can help with compiling the disparate data that is typically in a manufacturing location, engineering location, all over the place. Emails, folders, FTP sites, wherever they happen to be, pulling all that information in a very easy to use user interface. The data can be located by the end user much more quickly this way, more accurately, as it's always the most up-to-date data from the source, and being able to very easily share this in the format. So what I'd like to go through right now is the screen that you're looking at is what we call the Actify scorecard. And when I take a look at that, it allows me to create, view, and edit scorecards, and we've all seen scorecards before, as well as a task dashboard that allows you to view all that information in a Gantt chart type way. So taking a look at the scorecard. So this page shows all the different documents that have already been created, the different scorecards. And I can see there's multiple states here. There's the program manager, there's the tooling information, whatever information that the end user wants to display here is available. These are customizable by the end user. This is just how this particular one is showing. So as an example, I may have some archived data here that's by default hidden, but I may want to show that. Okay, so now I can see archived data. I can see active data, completed data. I may also want to filter some of the components that I'm working on, because typically you're going to have a much longer list than this. So I may want to filter that out into my brackets, because these are the two that I've been working on. So I can see that this has this state of active, the program manager, tooling number, and such. And so what I'd like to do is go into this one and take a look at what the information is in there. So, and again, we've all seen scorecards, and most of us most likely have. And typically they're in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. Hopefully that spreadsheet information is up to date. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So what we've developed in our business tools is the Excel-like look and feel, because that's what everybody's used to, and it's very easy. The learning curve is much shorter because of the familiar user interface. So when we're looking at this, there's some familiar information: program manager, engineers, quality control, and such. And we have all the drop-down information based on your requirements. And we have either an image or a 3D rotating part in here, so we can familiarize ourselves with how that looks as opposed to just numbers and words. And we have all the different drop downs here and so on. So as we scroll down here, you'll see that this is a one-page type environment. I'm actually looking at this just via browser. It's just whatever the major browsers are out there that allows me to log in with my user, my password, access the files that only I can access, and create, edit, and so on. So when I look at this, I'll see that there's some notes here. There's some CAD attributes that are in attachment. In this particular one, it's a gate structure, and I can see the 6 gates and some other information here. So I can go into my sales gate and see that I have my different task names. Each of these tasks have target start and end dates, and actual start and end dates, and some additional information. There's an approval status here. So whoever is logged in and approves that, their name is there. And it gives me the status of this. Green's good, red not so much. And I also have resources here. So again, there's a lot of different information that's could be located all over the place. So this user interface is actually displaying information that's in our database. It's always up to date. Always the latest piece of information is displayed and available here. If I take a look at some resources that may be available, there's a 3D PDF file here that I may want to download and take a look at. There is some other information here. There's an attributes Excel file. So I can attach, I can either pull from the database or upload to the database any type of collaborative information that I want associated to this. And if I can go down to the program award, there's tooling, APQP. I have additional tasks, and again, all the different dates and names and resources and whatnot. And you can see that this one was never completed, so I have a task status of danger. This one's been completed, so it's okay. And this one is warning because it wasn't completed. So there's a warning on this one. If I look down at my tooling, again, the same information. And most likely, if those watching this have seen this type or work in this type of environment, this is not unfamiliar. But what do I do with all this information? It's there, it's compiled, it's up to date. Okay, that's all good. But how do I look at in an overall view of this? So we have what was mentioned before, the task dashboard. And if I take a look at that, that's a dashboard that gives an overall view of all the different scorecard documents that I've created with all the tasks and with the dates on the tasks. So if I take a look at this on the left-hand column, here's my task names. And in those are all these different tiles. Each of these tiles is a task with the dates. And I can see this is back in December 2019, going on to February, March. So I have history to see what's been completed. And then I have what's currently in the works. And I can see that these were completed on time. These were completed late, and the responsible person for that. And this one is particularly overdue. So I can find out, well, why is this overdue? I can take a look at that information. What I can also do is show a heat map of this. So when I go into that, basically it's saying in a week's time, when I have 7 overlapping tasks, turn it to red. And as I hover my cursor on those tiles, I can see that there's different shades and different amount of overlap. And I can change that down to maybe 4 if I want to, or 5. And if I look at this, I can see that there's on the KO checklist, there's 3 tasks on this particular time frame. And I go into that and it shows me that there's overlapping tasks here. So what this allows me to do is view all the different tasks to see if I may need to reallocate resources. Now, I may want to, instead of looking at the task, I may want to take a look at the production plan to see if I have any potential bottlenecks in the past or in the future. So that would allow me to look into those certain locations to see what can I do? Can I move tooling around? Can I move resources around to help eliminate that bottleneck for that particular plant or engineer or whatnot? Okay, so that's the scorecard, and that's part of the business tools. Another one I'd like to show is our quoting tool. So this allows you to create, view, edit quotes. The same with job sheets, and in of itself, it has its own dashboard. So if I take a look at the quoting document, and I'll take a look at the same component that we're working on. User interface looks very similar. The content's different. Okay, I still have the pull downs, I still have this part that I'm working on. However, I'm looking more at manufacturing information. So this particular one, the part is being produced in the San Francisco plant with a certain tonnage, and there's some information about that machine, including costs. Well, if I change that to a different location, I get a warning saying, hey, that location does not have that machine. You need to change that, otherwise it's going to be invalid. So the algorithms behind the scenes, based on the customer's needs, would prevent this part from being manufactured at a location on incorrect machines. And the machining costs have changed accordingly. So again, this goes back to how is this typically done? Spreadsheets. Okay, is that information accurate and up to date? Maybe. Do I have the latest one? Maybe. Not sure. Everything on here, because it's in a database, it's all there. It's up to date. I can take a look at the part information. There's the weight, the specs of the part, material, costs, and so on. So as I go through this, I have all this information. Now, the other interesting thing is these tools can be linked to other business systems. I may have an ERP system that I want to push and pull information from. I may have a cost accounting system that I want to push and pull information to and from. Pull the manufacturing costs, pull any tooling costs into these tools to get real up-to-date information on this, so I can track the production of the part, the costs of the part, the timing of the parts. Another interesting thing is if I look back at the scorecard, and let me go ahead and get rid of that. Actually, I'll do this. I want to take a look at these two parts. So I have on the right the checkbox that allows me to do comparisons. So in this case, I have these two parts. The differences are in that lighter color, the pinkish color. I can see there's a left hand and a right hand. So what I can do is, once I have the one part, I can clone that or duplicate it into a second one and make modifications. Then I can do a comparison on here. So I can see that there's not a lot of difference. There's a tooling number, there's a description, but everything else is pretty much the same. But if I have discrepancies, or maybe I want to clone this and change the production location, because I looked at the task dashboard and I saw there was overlap. Okay, well, I need to requote this or create a new scorecard to track this for a different manufacturing location. Okay, so that very easily allows you to do that. And again, if I take a look at the scorecard, there's the cloning right here. So it makes it very easy to take one, copy it to another, rename it, change a few pieces of information, and be done, as opposed to doing that in a spreadsheet. Again, all this information is tied into the database. So if I go back to the quoting information, again, this is all tied to the database. So where does this part come from? All right, I see that it's some sort of bracket. Well, I know it is. It's a rear spring bracket. Okay. There may be times that I want to take a look at additional math data here. Okay, so the business tools that we were looking at is tied directly to the database in conjunction with that 3D data that Todd had mentioned. So I may want to take a look at what we call the catalog part here to see what information is there. Okay, so now I come into a different user interface. This is not the business tool anymore. It's still in the browser. This is called the Central Catalog, where all the math data plus additional information resides. So I look at this part. This is the one that I've been quoting on or I've been tracking in the scorecard. And I can see the supporting documentation. This file was actually uploaded from the scorecard into this catalog part. They're related to each other now. I have a links tab that this part I know is linked to the quote and it's linked to the scorecard. So bi-directional, I can track both ways. As I look at this, I can see that there's information that was uploaded automatically via the system. CAD file, any related documentation. I have what we call data docs. This is just additional information. There may be attributes that I automatically want to pull from those files and populate the database. I also know that this part is most likely part of an assembly. Okay, well, what assembly is that? Well, let's take a look. I see a where used arrow here. Okay, well, if I select that, well, I see that this is used in an assembly. Okay, well, that's good to know. I don't need to get to it maybe right now, but it's good to know. However, I may want to get some dimensional information from this part. Again, there's the business tool side, all that data. There's the math data. It's all linked together now as opposed to disparate in folders, in FTP sites, in emails, wherever they may be. So now I'm looking at this file, this component. Okay, I can see there's my 3D browser. This is our browser version of the 3D file. I may want to take a look at some of that same information. So I want to turn on my filters, look at my attributes and physical properties. Okay, well, here's my attributes. I can see some additional information here, part numbers, names and whatnot, volume, surface area. That's all good information. I may want to get some dimensional information. So we have subsets of the dimensioning from our desktop tool. So I may want to come in and get some dimensions here and maybe here. And that's good. I may want to store that as a snapshot. And add that snapshot. Well, what that does is it keeps a tab of whoever is logged in and created these snapshots as a collaboration tool. Okay, so whoever logs in, there's some information here that was done by myself. I may want to go back to that original screen. I may want to add some additional notes, request some information, go back to those dimensions that were generated, and come back to these dimensions that I just created. So this allows any user to log in, look at this information, request information, pull information, math data, bounding box, surface area volume, and so on. Again, very easy to use interface, browser technology. You can look at this on your desktop, you can look on your laptop, tablet, whatever, phone. Phones are too small for me. So if I come back to this page, I may want to look at that assembly now. So I do a where used, I go into my assembly. Okay, well, here's my assembly structure. And I can see all these different components. Yep, there's the one I was working on, right? If I want to take a look at this in the web browser as well, I can open that up, it will load. I may want to see an explode view of this. Okay, that's all good. And I can come back. So again, ease of use, easily shared across locations. This server can be installed and shared amongst locations globally. So I can upload files from the US and view them in China, vice versa, without any user intervention. So there's a couple components in here. If I take a look at this one, let's see, we have some additional components. Take a look at this one. Well, okay, well, this one says that there's a duplicate. Okay, so what we can also do is search for geometric duplicates. Part name's different, geometry is the same. So I may have throughout my database multiple duplicates of certain nuts and bolts and washers and fasteners and things of that nature. Very possible. So I can do a search on that. I can also, if I wanted to, do what we call the similar search and the same type of thing. Do I have any similarly shaped parts or similar geometry in my database? And it will return, based on the amount of information in your database, those files. And then I can kind of refine my search from there, looking for 157 and so on. So the database tied to the business tools, tied to the catalog, ties all this disparate information to each other in easy to use format. And in the world we're living in now, everybody is pretty much remote. I work out of my home office, have been for a while. I know a lot of our customers do. There's been a lot of issues. How do you get these files if normally you get them from a folder and you're not at work? Well, VPN in, whatever. But with this, it allows you to bypass the folder structure. Everything is in the database. I can tie back and forth to business tools, to cost accounting systems, to ERP systems, to pull all this information together and view and share in a much more efficiently viewed way. And at that, I believe I've gone through what I wanted to show. There's much more to this. If anybody's interested to do a follow-up, we can do that as well. I will hand this back over, and we could do some questions and answers if any have been submitted.
Just as a reminder, everyone, if you have questions, please submit them through the questions panel on the webinar dashboard. There doesn't seem to be any questions, Todd or Jim. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before we end the webinar?
Yeah, if anybody needs additional information, here's my contact. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
Yeah, if you need any additional information or have any questions, here's my contact information. And I do realize that there are some individuals from outside the state, so here's some additional contact, and you can always send an email to sales@actify.com or saleseurope@actify.com, and then the last is marketing@actify.com. So we really do appreciate you guys' time today, and thank you, and hopefully we'll hear from you in the future.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Todd and Jim. You guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.